New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers joined Tucker Carlson this week, where he praised Vladimir Putin as an interesting and smart man and dissed President Biden. Let's watch.
I'd love to see Joe Biden give an interview where he can speak on the history of the United States in the same way that Putin talked about the history of his country.
Now, that clip went viral on X. One user criticized Rodgers, writing, quote, "The people who claim to be American patriots sure do spend an awful lot of time disparaging our nation while praising our enemy." Another supported Rodgers' take, writing, quote, "As an American, I second that motion." Rodgers also took the opportunity to criticize the new direction of the left. Let's watch.
Now to even question the government, you're some like right-wing conspiracy, crazy tinfoil hat wearer, which is wild because it seems like the left has gone so far left, and anybody right of that, there's no center anymore. That's according to the left. You're a right winger unless you're so far on the left. The left used to be a party of Occupy Wall Street,
of course,
and free speech and rights for everybody. Now they're the ones beating the drums on the war machine and censorship and obedience.
The two also discussed the death of NFL star Pat Tillman, who left the NFL to join the Army after 9/11 and was killed in action in Afghanistan in 2004.
Another one of my heroes, Pat Tillman, who left the NFL to join the Army. His death is very suspicious as well, in that not the fact we know that he was killed by friendly fire, but the way they handled his body afterwards, his uniform, confiscating his last journal, using his death to prop up the war propaganda.
And as expected, they also delved into the COVID vaccines and the NFL's policies at the time that required Rodgers to wear a yellow wristband indicating that he was vaccinated. The scarlet letter for unvaccinated athletes.
Yeah, look, so first off, I gotta say this. This is no, shade at Tillman in particular. A lot of people do this and make this mistake.
Sorry, I said vaccinated to indicate that he was unvaccinated.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of people make this mistake who are not familiar at all with the differences between liberals and the left and all of this. But It is so frustrating to listen to. It's not the left you're upset with. It was the left that was doing Occupy Wall Street. And even back then, it was liberals beating up on the people that were protesting against the banks and making sure that none of them ever went to jail or were held accountable and sweeping all of that under the rug, bailing out the banks, but not bailing out the American homeowner. He's sitting there saying, oh, what happened to the middle? What's wrong with the middle? No, the problem is the middle has taken over, and that the populists on the extremes, who aren't actually extreme, who actually, they call it horseshoe theory. The center calls it horseshoe theory, but it really is that there are poor people that have more conservative culture values, and there are poor people who have more progressive culture values.
Right.
But everyone's kind of willing to put the culture stuff at the side, by the side, if you would actually be willing to address my economic populist concerns. This is the subject of my radar today, which I strongly recommend people go and listen to for more detail.
The left did not change.
But you don't want more center. The center is where we are. The center is how we got to where we are today, where it maintains a status quo in which so many people are unhappy.
Yes, I try very carefully not to say left when what I mean is liberal, progressive, just left,
centrist,
center,
Democrat.
It wasn't the left or the right that just caved on reapproving FISA, for instance.
Right.
That was a bunch of moderate Democratic people and Republican people. Same group of people who are silent on Julian Assange, silent on who support banning TikTok, right? The right and left are like, wait a minute, this is going to be Patriot Act all over again.
Yes.
It's center. So there are differences there that definitely don't get recognized. They ought to be recognized.
Yeah, and I do wish, look, I'm a little bit over debate culture at this point, but I do wish something a little bit different would happen, which is that some figures like Aaron Rodgers, who do occupy kind of like a liminal political space, would sometimes go on left-leaning podcasts so that they could be making an informed choice about what kind of lane they want to get in, what kind of political figures you'd like to support. I'd like to see more, Bernie Sanders on Joe Rogan and the kind of broadening of the coalition that can happen through events like that. And that's a little bit on, I think, kind of left podcasters probably not reaching out, but also the fact that they're just smaller and don't have the same kind of financial support that conservative podcasters
have to be
have from
actual left. Progressive people wouldn't. I mean, again,
right.
Like, can you imagine him on like the Majority Report or something?
100%. And it's tough, but I could imagine him on the Jimmy Dore Show.
For sure, for sure.
I could even imagine him on Young Turks.
Yeah.
And certainly I can imagine him on a show like mine or RBN or Sabby Sabs or any number of people who have been on this show. I can imagine him on this show, right?
We'd love that.
And you get a very different set of questions, and I think a more substantive interrogation of what his beliefs are, what he actually wants the country to look like.
He can be on with Glenn Greenwald. I saw Glenn Greenwald tweeting favorably about his reference there to Pat Tillman, a well-known story that Glenn Greenwald himself helped publicize, write about, call attention to so many years ago. This football player who was killed in action by friendly fire and whose death was absolutely, manner of it was hidden and misstated by the U.S. government because it was embarrassing, even though it was the truth, and that kind of thing over and over again.
It does seem like a lot of the traction, a lot of the engagement with this interview does seem to be from people who are upset at the favorable statements about Putin and his knowledge of history and that kind of a thing. What do you make of that?
I mean, this is just more Russia bad, Russia derangement. Vladimir Putin, to be clear, is an authoritarian leader of a country that has invaded another country and deserves a lot of criticism. And, we've expressed views on how that interview could have gone better, but it is foolish to pretend that he's a stupid man. He obviously does know a lot about Russian history. Now, he is able to, use it to craft a narrative about why what he's doing is right and his actions are justified. I similarly can't quite imagine Joe Biden expressing, or Donald Trump, frankly. Can either of them talk? Trump would do it in a humorous way, but could either of them talk in a, off the cuff, in a extremely thoughtful way about the history of the American experiment? We laugh at that idea.
We know what Joe Biden's version of history is. I was the one that got Nelson Mandela out of prison.
Right.
Corn pop and the kids at the black pool touched my blonde leg hairs. I mean, we've heard all of his stories, some of which may be true, like he may have been at that pool, some of which have been disproven over and over again, and he continues to tell the same story, mixing up the leaders of this country and that country. Yeah. So no, I would not be especially interested in hearing Biden's historical
I definitely don't think we should idolize Vladimir Putin. I don't think we should idolize Joe Biden or Donald Trump either. You should be very cautious about idolizing any political leader, but that's a different thing from recognizing his obvious intellect and successes.
And it's a little bit face-saving, right? Because as we discussed in the show, we didn't object at all to Tucker Carlson doing the interview, but he did seem rather outmatched. I think the language barrier wasn't helping him, on top of the fact that, yes, obviously, Putin is going to have a much better grasp of Russian history and be able to kind of use that as a tool to advance his own agenda and then avoid kind of hard questions from Tucker Carlson. Everyone has an agenda. I don't mean that in a especially nefarious way. But if you know you kind of got bested in an interview and then talk up, well, that person was just really, really great and they're really, really savvy and they're really, really knowledgeable, then it makes it look a little bit less like you were the one that messed up. They were just really terrific. And so I do think there's a little bit of that going on with the kind of puffery around Putin.
Right. I mean, you can know a lot about the history of Eastern Europe and still be wrong on the idea that you were justified in, starting a war, but that doesn't mean you're stupid. That doesn't mean you don't literally know the Russian history and, what land changed hands and all of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, that does it for us for today, but it is somehow only Wednesday, so we will be back tomorrow. Is that true? Is that real? What's happening?
I can't wait, Robby. Today was a really good day. I really enjoyed our breadth of subjects. I enjoyed chatting with you. I think we had especially good conversations today. So be sure to tune in tomorrow for more of the same and like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. For those of you who like to listen while you're on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Bye-bye.
Take care.